You all must have shared a chocolate bar or a cake with someone. Then guess what? You already know a little bit about fractions. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Learning Maths with Namita. Today we will learn about fractions in a very simple and easy way. So as you can see here, a fraction shows equal parts of a whole. Okay, which means that when we divide something into equal parts, we are using fractions. We are talking about fractions. Okay, so let's understand this with a very basic and simple example. So here we have a chocolate bar, okay, which is rectangular in shape, and we want to divide it into two equal parts. All right, can we do that? Yes, of course. Let's do this. So we can divide here this rectangular chocolate bar into two equal parts. Okay, now let's suppose you want to keep one part to yourself and you want to give one part to your friend. Okay, so we can assume that this blue part you are giving away to your friend. All right, now first we'll talk about how many total parts are there. How many total parts of the chocolate bar do you see here? We have two, right? This is one, this is two. And how many parts out of these two you are keeping to yourself? Just one part, right? Okay. And how many parts out of these two parts you are giving away? Again one part, right? So there are only two parts, and one you are giving away and one you are keeping to yourself. Alright, so this is the whole information that we need for a fraction. Okay, alright. Now, how do we represent a part of a whole in a fraction? Okay, so let's talk about this one. Okay, the blue shaded part. This is the part that you are giving away to your friend. Okay, so just one part you are giving away. Now, how many total parts we have? We have two parts. Okay, so this is how we represent. So you are giving 1 upon 2, or we can call it as 1/2. Okay, we can call it as 1/2. So 1/2 of the chocolate you are giving to your friend and 1/2 you are keeping to yourself, because you are keeping one part out of the two parts to yourself, right? Okay, so this is how we represent a fraction. Now let's understand the terminology associated with the fraction. Okay, so now you have seen that we wrote just now 1 upon 2. Okay, here you can see two numbers. The one at the top is known as numerator. Okay, and the number at the bottom is known as denominator. Okay, alright, now what do these numbers tell us? The numerator tells us about the parts taken. Parts taken or given away, it actually means which part are you talking about. Okay, like here if we see, so if we are talking about the blue part, we will count this only, and if we are talking about the unshaded part, we will talk about this only. Okay, and the denominator tells you how many total parts are there. Okay, so you can see here total parts are 2, right? And when you are talking about the part of the chocolate, the fraction of the chocolate that you are keeping to yourself, you are keeping just one part of these two, right? So this is 1, right? Now let's again have a rectangle, but this time we are going to divide it into 3 equal parts. Okay, alright, so we have this rectangle now and we are going to divide it into 3 equal parts. Alright, so let's do that. This is 1 part, 2 part and 3 part. Okay, now again let's shade one part with a pink color. Okay, and this one also we have in pink color. Okay, now let's talk about how many parts are shaded here in the pink color and how many parts are not shaded, or they are just white. Okay. So we will represent these things with a fraction, with the help of a fraction. Alright, so let's talk about the pink color. Okay. What fraction will represent the pink portion? Okay. We again need two things. How many total parts are there and how many parts are shaded in pink color. Okay. So can you count how many parts are shaded in pink color? 2 parts. Okay. So the numerator will be 2. And how many total parts are there? 1, 2 and 3, right? Let me write it here. 1, 2, 3. Total parts are 3. So 2 upon 3 is the fraction which represents the pink part of the whole. Okay. And we can say white or unshaded part is represented by the fraction. How many parts are there in the white color? Just 1. And how many total parts are there? That will be same, 1, 2 and 3. Okay. So 1 by 3 or 1 upon 3 is the fraction which is representing white part of the whole rectangle. I hope you are getting this right. So you must be very clear with the numerator and denominator. Alright. Let's practice more with another example, and this time we can take a circle. Okay. We can take a circle or oval or anything. Alright. Let's divide this into 4 equal parts. Alright. We can do that, right? We can make a vertical line here which goes through the center, and then we can make a horizontal line which again goes through the center. Okay. Now we all have to keep in mind that all these parts should be exactly equal. Here I am just drawing roughly with a pen, so it might seem they are not exactly equal, but fractions represent equal parts of a whole only. Okay. This is the most important aspect of fractions. Alright. Let's shade them with different colors. Okay. So I am using yellow color here. Okay. And I am using yellow here. Okay. And let me color this part also in yellow color. Okay. And then I can keep one part in blue color. Okay. Alright. So let's write the fractions for blue and yellow parts. Okay. Alright. So first, what do we need to know? Total parts. How many total parts are here? 4, right? 1, 2, 3 and 4. Total parts are 4. Alright. Now, how many parts are there in yellow? 1, 2, 3, right? So numerator will be 3, and in the denominator we will have the total part. So 3 upon 4. Okay. And for the blue part, what will be the fraction which represents the blue part of the circle? How many parts are there in blue? Just 1, right? So we can write as, let me shade it again. Okay. How many parts are in blue color? Just 1 part, right? So again we can write here 1 blue part. So the numerator will be 1 here and total parts are 4. So the denominator will be 4. Okay. So this is how we use fractions to represent equal parts of a whole. So now, like 1 by 2 is called as 1/2, right? Similarly, 3 by 4 we can call it as 3/4, right? We can call it as 3/4. So the yellow color is occupying 3/4 of this circle, and blue color occupies just 1/4 of this circle, right? So these are the different terminologies that are being used when you deal with fractions. Okay. the most important thing that you always have to keep in mind is what? I have already mentioned it before, that the parts of whole must be equal. If they are not equal parts, then it is not a correct fraction model. Alright? Okay, so now we can talk about what we have learned today. Okay, so we learned about fractions, right? That is the main topic. So we learned about what fractions are. Then we also learned about numerator and denominator. Okay, so this is the basics of fractions. Okay, so you must be very clear concept wise about what fractions are, how can we represent a part of a whole in the form of a fraction. Okay, what is the numerator, what is the denominator, there should be no confusion in these terms. All right, then only we'll be able to understand fractions in much deeper way. All right, so this was it for today's lesson. Practice it as much as you can, get comfortable with these terms, and in our next video we are going to learn about types of fraction. There are proper fractions, there are improper fractions, and there are mixed fractions, sometimes also known as mixed numbers. All right, but before that you must need to practice to how to write fractions, how to read them. All right, do like and subscribe my channel, share this video with your friends. See you in the next lesson. Bye bye.